Good evening and welcome to everybody who's watching and everybody who's here live for 40 days. Bible study number 201. We'll be looking at Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21 on July 22nd. This is our 75th Bible study in the Matthew series. To start, we'll go to Matthew chapter 6, look at verses 19 to 21. And here it comes. 6:19. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So we have things like rust and thieves and other stuff going on. Now, the Jameson Fawcett Brown calls verses 19 to 34, this whole last section of Matthew chapter 6, right? Straight to the end. JFB calls it concluding illustrations of the righteousness of the kingdom, heavenly mindedness, and filial confidence. Benson pointed out that Jesus transitions from religious actions to common actions here, and this clarifies that the Sermon on the Mount was not for a specific group of people like the disciples or Jesus' followers alone, or for everybody else. It's for everybody, all encompassing. The pulpit reminds us that God must be regarded in all our actions, not just religious duties. Like before we had prayer, sorry, it was giving, then prayer, then fasting. Here it's in everything. The true wealth here is a safer pursuit than earthly wealth, because earthly wealth can be lost easily. Now, that's basically everything right there. But of course, we have details we're going to do. No car, no house, no money brings healing. If a person is gravely injured or, is injured or gravely ill, keep that in mind. Pulpit shared that even in the Talmud, the oral traditions that are now like rabbinical laws for the Jewish people, even there was instruction to give freely to build a heavenly account. Of course, we know the Jews that followed this, they were not of the good-hearted type, so they would have just been giving as I want to give to get in the future. So it wasn't giving from the heart, it was more like giving because I want. But the principle in the instruction here is all that we need, and that's all. It's quite good there. The giving here into investing to your future, into investing to your heavenly kingdom, it's a hard instruction to obey. We're hearing echoes. Sarah, drop your volume, please. They're like hearing me live, but they want to hear it from the speaker too. Well, disconnect your audio. Click the Zoom button. Well, click the screen and look for the audio thing. Click the down arrow and disconnect. Get it through? Let me see. Hold on, you. Three dots, disconnect audio. There you go. Easy as that. Slide across the bottom. Three dots, disconnect audio. It's different on the phone, so it's a good thing, Sarah. Let me see it. Where were we? Right. Here's the thing. Giving, praying, and fasting in private cannot be publicly verified. We were told to give, fast, and pray in private. But laying up of treasures in heaven, that can be something that is easy to show while doing your work at your daily jobs, and it can be viewed by some people as just getting by without being singularly focused on wealth. So while you're living and working, you can be laying up treasures in heaven. Think about it. How hard would you have to work at natural jobs while you're ensuring that you're giving up into your treasures in heaven. It's easy for some, but not so easy for others. We'll discuss it further. The cross-reference verses in this, it almost is like they're hateful on riches. And if you looked at the cross-reference verses, I'm not bringing them up, but if you look at the cross-reference verses, you'd wonder, like, why do so many church people focus on wealth and going to church to get a blessing? And that's why we remember Jesus told us, deny ourselves, deny our natural selves, seeking wealth. Wealth may be sought after for different reasons, but most people who do seek after wealth hard, they're at their root very selfish. Even people who are wealthy and generous may be selfish because the giving that they seem to do so generously, it brings them status or a feeling of superiority because they get to look down at the people who they give to. I'm better than you. Here's money. I'm better than you. Here's food. I'm better than you. Here's a car. Here's, whatever they give. So even people who seem to be generous may not be giving from the heart. It's clear that the nature of the earthly wealth is corrupt. And what I'm saying here is not just that being wealthy can encourage arrogance, but wealth itself, the substance of your wealth, your money, jewelry, possessions, they'll perish. They can be stolen, they can be lost, they can be destroyed, dwindled. Think now, should we really focus so hard on something so unreliable? We notice that there is a repetition here as the same things and consequences are used twice. As Jesus said, not to pursue the earthly, and then he said, pursue the heavenly. So check it out. Do not lay up treasures on earth. And then he said, lay up treasures in heaven. So there is the repetition. He said it one way, and then he said the same thing another way. So he is very serious about this. That alone should destroy the prosperity preachings that we've been studying. We did a couple of weeks ago. And I didn't even mention that when we did that series. The end of this section gives a real hint, that piece about where your heart is. It gives a hint into reading people as God sees them. You see, God sees the heart while we see the outward appearance. And in 1 Samuel 16:7, God told the prophet Samuel, people look at the outside, I look at the heart. And he's telling us here clearly that we can get a glimpse into people's hearts by observing what people treasure. This isn't preached and it's not used as often as it should be, in my opinion, because everybody's afraid of the Bible said not to judge. That's what stupid people say, all because they forget that not judging is supposed to be, it's a command for unrighteous judging. The Greek words used for storing up and treasure, we need to look at that. In terms of storing up and treasuring, watch it here. Do not store up. This here is thesaurizete, and the word for treasures itself, thesaurus. This first one is a verb. The V here means a verb. The N here means a noun. So one is the verb form, one is the noun form. It's two different words in the Greek. 2343 is a strong number, 2344. They are related, but it's two different verbs. When we look at the roots, thesaurizo for the verb and thesaurus for the noun refers purely to treasure or storehouse of the treasure. So this treasure, do not lay up for yourselves treasures. It's referring to anything valuable, or it could be the house or the vault that you put it in. The verb form refers to the action of storing it, the action of amassing and accumulating treasure. In explaining this, the Greek study page said that the verb treasure can either magnify faithfulness or expose idolatry. Telling a Jewish audience, context here, telling a Jewish audience not to store up treasures for themselves is like telling fish not to swim. It's a well-established fact that Jews are very wealth-driven. This is not being stereotyped. This is not me stereotyping people. This is just a fact. This is how people are. It's not just the Jews, though, but he was speaking to a Jewish audience, and they're very wealth-driven. In the culture of those times, we could even see that clothes were a sign of wealth because Genesis 45:22 says, to each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. That is the gift giving by Joseph to his brothers. Joseph was the prime minister. That position would have been called the vizier. And he was the vizier of the most prosperous nation of the world, in the world at that time. And he chose to give money, clothing to his brothers, but money to his favorite brother, and 5 sets of clothes to the brother. So clothes represented a great deal of wealth. To us today, that might be like really expensive jewelry or cars or probably a house. I don't know. It's probably that wealthy, that valuable. Judges 14:12 tells us of another one. Let me tell you a riddle, Samson said to them. If you can give me the answer within 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. He was telling this to some guys who wanted to know his secret. This was hundreds of years after Joseph, and clothes was still a big value item. The people of that time, especially the Jews, were adamant about their wealth being on display. Just like today, it's kind of like somebody buys a pickup truck, which is supposed to be a working vehicle, but they put like 22-inch chrome rims on it and very thin tires, with like low aspect ratio tires, to show I can buy something that's supposed to be working for me and have it on display and show my wealth in the object. Similar to now, it's just they use the clothes for it. If giving, fasting, and praying were on display for attention, back to the start of this, imagine how ridiculous these people would be with their clothes, their jewelry, and flocks, which would be their signs of wealth. So I want to appear holy. I'll pray in public. I want people to make sure they know that I'm better than them, that I'm richer than them. My clothes need to be like so extravagant. Vincent Ward Studies shares a beautiful legend of Saint Thomas and Gondophorus, which is Thomas the disciple. And I want us to try to remember to do this in a weekly session this week, if possible tomorrow. All right, there's a nice little story there that we could share it. 1 Timothy 6:18 provided great advice from Paul to the wealthy. And I hope we can be in the same position to say we live like that. So check out 1 Timothy 6:18 when you get a chance. In terms of our futures, these verses here, they indicate that there'll be an account that we will add to during our lives here. Jesus didn't parallel storing up treasures here and storing up treasures by chance. This carries a clear meaning that many people who are poor in spirit or meek or persecuted for righteousness and reviled, they'll be earning tangible rewards in heaven. And I'll remind you of that. The chapter 6, just before that, we had the Beatitudes in chapter 5. And the poor in spirit shall inherit the kingdom of heaven. The meek shall inherit the earth. The hunger and thirst for righteousness, the hungry and thirsty for righteousness will be satisfied, and so on. God made the earth with a hierarchical system of living where food webs, social structures, heaven and hell exist. So there's no doubt that heavenly eternity will join us to riches that is promised in different verses of his word, like the Beatitudes that I just referenced. Now, we see Jesus describing the earthly wealth with moth and rust and thieves coming to steal and destroy it. The focus is directed at the nature of the wealth, not so much where that wealth is, like it's on earth, the nature of earthly wealth. That wealth perishes because it's not ours forever. This term was used because riches and wealth took various forms in those times. Remember, they didn't have a pure money system like we do. Their goods held wealth over time as well. Those clothes that we spoke about. The moth was used to refer to the garments of the wealthy because those wealthy clothes were imported from faraway lands or made with a lot of expensive materials, and they'd cost a lot to make and transport. So the cost of it would have been expensive. Those cultures use the same styles without changing. So whatever you have now as your wealthy clothes, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations later, if those clothes are still around, your great great grandkid would still be cutting those clothes and it would look and everybody be like, wow, he's so rich because he's wearing those rich clothes. We might not be able to see it, but they would. The the moth destruction, any hint of that would spoil the value. Rust here doesn't literally refer to rust because nobody stored wealth in iron. They didn't use iron, they used gold. But gold alloys still show corrosion and tarnishing. Gold alone by itself, gold is not likely to rust because gold is something called a noble metal. And that means gold doesn't react with many things. Iron, however, reacts. That's why iron rusts quickly. The atomic structure of gold is so stable that it doesn't even bond easily with other materials. So gold stays unaffected by other things around it. However, gold is so soft, it must be mixed with other metals to be useful. You could never make a hammer of pure gold. You can't hit any nails and drive them into anything because the hammer will get damaged. So to make gold useful, we mix it with other metals. That's what forms alloys, alloys. Alloys are mixtures of different metals so that you get improvements that each will bring to the mix. And obviously gold jewelry will be mixed. So when you buy gold jewelry, you buy gold jewelry in carats, 14 carat, 10 carat, 24 carats, etc. How the carat thing works, and I did this research too, the number of carats divided by 24 indicates the percentage of the gold content. So when you buy 24 karat gold, it's 99.9% pure gold. Lower carat gold is stronger because it'll have more of the other materials. It'll resist dents and scratches better. It'll still be lower in value, and it will tarnish faster because of the other materials, but it's stronger. We note here that moths do not eat fabrics. The larval form of moths eat fabrics before metamorphosis. And moths will consume fibers like Trinis would eat KFC. The Greek root for moth is sais. Sais, while it means moth, the webpage on Strong's Greek 4597, the sais word. I'm going to show you this. Where moth, this word here, S, E with an accent, S, sais, right? The web page with the root for that adds that the moth is part of a triad of agents given here that destroy earthly wealth. The triad's members are all in this verse here: moth, rust, thieves. These are actors that we may try to protect all our earthly treasures from, but eventually they get everything. In terms of biblical imagery, these external elements of destruction often complement our internal drive to hell. In the context of the time, money at Jesus' time was gold, and that was often buried. It would be difficult to find money because it's buried. It'd be difficult to uncover it. And the alloys buried in the ground would be more vulnerable to be destroyed. So if you have a 14 karat gold bar or something and you bury it, it would be more likely to get damaged as you hide it and you put it away there in the ground because there's more of a mix of other metals in it. The Greek for the word eating or food or rust or meat or meal, you will see it, rust. This word here, brosis, that should be an easy one to remember, Try to remember that one, guys. Brosis means rust. It also means eating food, meat, or meal. In this verse, it's used to mean the act of eating, like corrosion eats something. Food is eaten in civilized states in a gradual manner. I've seen some people devour food and swallow it as if they were not brought up in homes. But in a civilized state, food is eaten gradually. The decay of a person, the decay of his possessions are also going to take place in a gradual manner. Often we don't notice the changes while they're happening, but it's obvious when we see the difference, like a before and after, 2 years, 10 years later, you see the difference. Jesus was warning here of character and possession deterioration at the same time. Being highly prized, the items here also point us to covetousness and worldly mindedness. We are being warned against having that kind of attitude because the world today is all about envy. People change their vehicles' rims, their vehicles themselves. They change the color of their houses just to impress people or outdo somebody. So your brother paints his house, you want to go and paint your house. And your brother puts on new rims, you have to go and buy new rims, bigger rims, shinier rims, something to just show up that I am the richer one, I'm the more important one. You know, look at me and be impressed. That's how people operate. It's sad. In heaven, there is no decay, no parasite, no thieves to threaten our joy. I'm careful here to point out that while God made us to enjoy things, we really do the most fulfillment and we enjoy the most fulfillment when we spend time with Him. The body just gets in the way with its needs. It's easy to get trapped or ensnared in the flesh. It's easy to get trapped in the things of the world because those things bring immediate gratification and they bring delayed suffering and destruction when God is pushed aside for them. So people don't realize the full effect of their actions until long after. It's kind of like if you live carelessly, you eat badly, you don't exercise, you're fine, you're getting to relax now. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, you'll be like, I wish I exercised and ate better before. I'm suffering so much, I'm in pain because the immediate gratification delays the suffering consequence. In terms of that verse 21 with our hearts, where our hearts show where our treasure is. I'll bring back our treasure. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This is a very revealing verse, and I've used this sometimes to share with people. Our hearts may be so corrupt that our hearts can act in selfishness and still be hidden our intentions. Ellicott reminded us that it's possible to pursue both treasure here and in heaven, but only one will be the true treasure, while the other will end up being something like a conscience easer. Our hearts truly cannot be divided. The treasure that we dwell and fantasize about, that's the treasure that will consume us. And sadly, earthly treasure will literally consume us to death. Verse 21 here is a logical conclusion to the paragraph because the paragraph starts, do not lay up treasures on earth. Cambridge drops a very cold bomb in a single sentence commentary that it gave. The whole of verse 21, Cambridge gave a single sentence and it was powerful. They say, or they said, the words strike us when we consider the hoards of treasure hidden or buried in the earth. Think now, what they were really saying. If our treasure is earthly, it will take us to be buried, decayed, and forgotten, like earthly treasures which are buried. Very often people bury treasure and it's never pulled back up because they forget it or they're so busy hoarding it, they never go back for it, and then they die. So cherishing treasures on earth would lead a person to be left, buried, and forgotten. Luke 12:33 said, Jesus was telling a guy, sell that ye have and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. So he speaks here, the thief, the moth, treasures that fail not, meaning like the rust, they don't get corrupted. Jesus was giving warnings and encouragement in that chapter. And he, just before this, he shared a parable of someone called the rich fool. The rich fool thought his financial and economic security was all that he needed. And then he died. How often have we thought of how easy and how comfortable life would be If we had a certain income, if we had a certain amount of money, if we had certain possessions or certain property, my life would be so good if I have this or this or this. That kind of thinking is evidence of how worldly we can be, and we must fight that. Again, I'm not saying don't desire and don't work for things, but don't place your hopes, dreams, and aspirations on those things. Matthew Henry called worldliness a fatal symptom of hypocrisy, which gives Satan the most secure hold over a person because it creates a cloak of hypocrisy. You see, a worldly person is wrong about everything, and his focus is on himself and his pleasures. There's nothing wrong with enjoying pleasurable things, but there are rules for enjoying them in a manner that pleases God. If we choose to go outside of what God says about those things, we will pay a price. Bengals Norman is careful to point out that listeners are referred to with plural and numbered nouns in verses 19 to 20, but singular in verses 21 to 23. So here you see yourselves. All of these are plural. But in 21, where your treasure is there, your heart, these are singular. I can show you that. In verse 19, you see it here, yourselves, personal possessive pronoun, dative, second person plural, right? And let me see if I can move across 19. In verse 20, yourselves, it's plural as well. Personal possessive, dative, second person plural. But verse 21, you, personal possessive pronoun, but singular, genitive singular. And it's singular again here, just in case people are wondering. Genitive singular. Bengal pointed this out, and he suggested the general statement that was given in the first couple of verses should be taken personally and applied on an individual basis. That's why it's given singular after. Simple facets of the text like that would be easily overlooked if we just read it. The Greek pronoun for the second person, for you, it carries more specific meaning than what we see in English, because I can say you are good or you are bad and talk to one person. I could also say you are good or you are bad and be talking to several people, because you is both singular and plural in English. The ESV has yourselves in 19 and 20, but you're in 20. But even that, if we read it in English, we may not realize it's plural once and then singular after. There is no question that with the Greek, and that's why Jesus' message here is deeper than we'd ever likely realize, unless we use the original languages or if we read what the esteemed commentators share. I'm almost done. Benson quotes a guy called McKnight, who we've been hearing from sometimes. Nothing can be conceived more powerful than to damp the keenness. I read that wrong. I'm starting over. Nothing can be conceived more powerful to damp that keenness with which men pursue the things of this life than the consideration of their emptiness and uncertainty, or to kindle in them an ambition of obtaining the treasures in heaven, than the consideration of their being substantial, satisfying, durable, and subject to no accident whatever. I'll translate, don't worry. The destroyer of our focus on temporary life is the contemplation of our weakness and vulnerability in the face of eternity. The aim to achieve heavenly goals over having earthly success without problems and stress, that can powerfully change a person's existence and drive. People are in love with the things of this world, and as such, we suffer because we are not aligned with God. Israel is a prime example. The nation of Israel has not repented and will continue to suffer. Remember, 2/3 of them are going to die. The world here, it's a tool. It's a temporary spot to park. It's a temporary spot to sit. The world here is not that big of a deal so that we should cherish it and everything it brings to the point where we push holiness and fruit of the Spirit aside. I want this so holiness could wait. No. 1 John 2:15 says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. That's a hard verse to take. That is a proof that we cannot be part of the world in our hearts and still be His. If we're focused on enjoying the world and we are bored or unaffected by the things of God, can we really go to heaven and enjoy heaven with Him? It's like earth here is practice, and the team we're playing for and the team we love playing for here, that's the hometown that we're going to end up in. So are you on team world or team God? Team holiness or team worldliness? I'd add here at the end of this that when we build up a reputation in this life of being holy and being Christ-like, it makes it easier for us to choose the right path when we're greatly tested. A man will look at great temptation and refuse it, even when he thinks he can get away with it, simply because the threat of destroying his reputation, if he slips up, still exists. I also point out that though that should not be our reason for doing good works, we should do our good works out of love for Jesus, gratitude to God, and obedience to the unction of the Holy Spirit. I'll close with our watchwords: Cedo Deo, Obedire Deo, Timori Dei. That means fear God, obey God. No, sorry. Submit to God, obey God, and live in fear of God. I'd like to thank everybody who came out here for our Bible study. This was Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 to 21, our 75th Bible study in the Matthew series. It's number 201 in our documented Bible studies. Actually, these are all the Bible studies I documented from the start. So this is our 201st Bible study on July 22nd, 2025. I do thank all of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube. I thank the live audience for being here, and literally a live audience because we have some people who are here in person as well. Thank you all. Have a good night and God bless you.